Hey guys, I am back at it again, and today we're going to be looking into The Evil Within 2, which, after a few years from the first one, Tongo Games is back at it again. This time is a little bit different because they are owned by Bethesda, so there is like some Bethesda Easter eggs here and there, but hey, other than that, it's just more Evil Within. Now, my history with the game, much similar to the first one. I saw Nitro Rat play it during his Halloween. I thought it was cool. I picked it up myself, and now here I am telling you what I think about it. It's been about 2 years since I last played this, so honestly, I'm very excited to even play it again because when I did first play this, I thought it was amazing. I thought it was actually better than the first one. So let's go ahead and see if it truly is better than the first one or if I was just overhyping it. We open up with Sebastian reliving the event of his daughter Lily dying in a house fire that was hinted at and talked about in the first game. Immediately after waking up from this dream, we see Kidman is right in front of Sebastian and tells us that Lily is still alive and she's actually being kept at Morbius, the organization that was behind everything from the first game and this one as well. Sebastian agrees to go with her, and we dive right back into STEM because Lily's actually inside the STEM system, much like how Sebastian was stuck in there in the first game. After finding some clues on Lily's whereabouts, we find out that she's actually being tailed by this killer with a camera who has a fetish of making people into art. Yeah, after our botch attempt on trying to capture him, we find a Strag Morbius team member from the previous operation named Yukio. She gives us some tips on how to handle the artist, and we proceed to do so. And this time, we actually do end up killing the artist, who's actually named Stefano. Soon after killing Stefano, we reunite with Lily, but come to find out that Myra, the wife of Sebastian, no longer missing. She was in STEM all along. But she's a little bit different, and she actually takes Lily away from us. After trying to follow her and get some answers from her, we come to face with the next antagonist of the game, Father Theodore. After meeting him, we meet up with a girl named Torres, who seemingly knows Myra and actually tells us that Myra developed a plan to destroy Morbius from the inside out. And so we help her out, she helps us out, and we slowly come face to face with Father Theodore once again, giving us some mind fucks. We accidentally shoot Torres, who we thought was Father Theodore. With her last breath, she helps us out one last time, soon after dying. After this, we storm right ahead through Theodore's stronghold with the help of Yukio's machine, and we're here to end this once and for all. It's what I would say, but we just had to have one more character die just on the spot out of nowhere. Now we can finally finish this, but we had to go through a boss gauntlet with multiple bosses from the first game. Mind you, this came out of nowhere, and I had literally no fucking ammo. I was kind of pissed at this, but that's besides the point. After finally defeating every boss in the boss gauntlet, Myra comes out of nowhere and delivers the final blow for us, although Myra's acting a lot more different than she normally is. And she actually takes Lily away from us, leaving us to pretty much die. We put us up to Myra with her final words. She gives us a heartfelt goodbye and pretty much sacrifices herself for the good of the world. While this is happening, we actually take control of Kidman, and she pretty much goes guns blazing inside the Morbius organization, revealing that she's actually been helping us out the whole time, just hasn't been able to tell us. But once Morbius is taken down once and for all, we just drive out in the sunset, and that's pretty much it. The credits roll by, and that's the end of the story. So the story isn't anything groundbreaking. It's pretty much just there to act as a story for the game to actually play as a video game. And Theodore and Stefano. So Stefanos, he could have been handled a lot more better, but ultimately he just wasn't, and he really just felt like fluff for the story mode. And he really just was for the first act of the game. And then once he's killed off, Theodore immediately shows up. And I did like Theodore a bit more. Ultimately, neither of these are better than Ruvik in my opinion. Ruvik just had more of a grounded role in it, and he was just in there for the whole thing. We got to see his beginning, middle, and end. But for Theodore and Stephanos, we just didn't get to see that. It was more of like a rush or just fluff, as I said beforehand. Theodore, he just got kind of killed off, just seemingly out of nowhere, for Myra to be the next big bad and the final big bad, which that wasn't really hinted at all in the whole game. It just sort of just happened, and you're just not really given much to go off of with her. And the game does something that I truly don't like in any type of media, that is introducing a character, whether it's a book, movie, video game, anime, cartoon, what have you, where you introduce a character and you also kill said character in the same episode or whatever. I'm truly not a fan of that, and this game does this so many times that I honestly got quite annoyed with it. I just didn't really care for that, and it really shows off that the game's story just feels more unfinished and not as complete as the first one. But the first one, you had Ruvik, seeing his beginning and middle and ending, like I said beforehand, along with the whole beacon situation and all the characters having a more bigger part compared to every character in The Evil Within 2. I wish the story was a little bit more different, a little bit more unique than this whole saving Lily and that's about it for the story. Because choosing that route really just makes the game story less interesting. In fact, Ruvik, who was the main big bad in the first game, is nowhere to be mentioned except for one time. And they could have made the story about him, about like the real life situation, maybe him converting the real life into what STEM was like, and truly showing what STEM is truly capable of. Like Morbius keeps on saying, they keep on viewing it as this higher being of existence, and Ruvik is the prime example of what that could have been. Ultimately, they don't do it, sadly. I can't really mention this anywhere else, so I'll mention it here. Joseph is alive, Joseph from the first game, and yeah, they don't explain if he did die or not in the first one, but they confirm that he is alive in the second one. And that could have been the whole story as well. If they ever do make a sequel, that could be the story where Joseph's still around and he actually appears later in the game or midway through the game, along with Ruvik, showing off what Morbius was pretty much trying to tell us through the whole first and sequel, that STEM is truly the pinnacle of mankind, pretty much a higher being of existence, where he's able to command reality into what he shapes as reality. But that's just my idea, what I thought the game could have been compared to what we actually did get, which was a very grounded, safe story compared to the first one. With the new moves in the game, there's only really one new move in the game, and that is crouching system. It's a little bit reworked compared to the first game, where it's more than just pressing the circle button and that's it. If you actually press the circle button again, you can actually cover, like much similar to GTA, but also you can't move from a corner unless you actually press the circle button again, making it a lot more easier for enemies to not detect you and having a better cover system. And also you can mess around a bit with it while seemingly turning the camera to another corner and pressing the circle button and having Sebastian just run over there. And then the quality of life mechanic that I wish was in the first one, but at least it's in the second one, and that being the quick turn. Now yes, it's a small detail, but it's very much needed, since the first game really was pretty bad with that 360 rather than a 180. But in this one, they took care of it. It's actually an option in the menus, and you can disable it if you actually truly don't want that. Although I don't really know why you wouldn't want that, because it makes the game a lot more better in my opinion. You do have a home base, much like the first game, this one being your old cop office, along with multiple safe houses, some of which having coffee that can actually refill your health. And I should be making a joke about how you have to wait for it, or how coffee can actually refill your health, but I don't really have one because I don't drink coffee. I used to, but I was more of a milk guy, so have at you with that. You also have crafting benches, which, like the name suggests, you can actually craft items that you can find in the overworld, whether that's a drop from enemy or inside a box or to some place. Also upgrade your weapon. Like the first game, you have your firing rate, damage, all that cool shit. Except this time, it doesn't take goo, it actually takes crafting parts. along with actually upgrading your own skills. This time, they actually add some new skills, which I really do think they changed up the whole game. That being the Predator skill, which just allows you to kind of home target an enemy as long as you're close enough. Sebastian will just run up to them and just stab them to death. Very satisfying, by the way. Then you have this whole slowing down time to shoot an enemy using your remaining stamina type of thing. Much similar to Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2, where you can just slow down time and shoot wherever you want. As for the new weapons in the game, they have the flamethrower, which I actually never used because I just didn't really find a need for it. Especially since it gives it to you pretty late in the game to the point where you can't really use it on a boss. Then you have these different type of pistols and shotguns, which it's not as interesting as you would think, because typically you're just using the next one that you get because it's supposedly stronger and just better, and that's about it. Unless you do have a specific need for that weapon that you can just switch back to, which it allows you to do that. It's just not a very interesting system that I thought it could have been. Having you switch between pistols because each pistol is actually different rather than just a cosmetic change. Then the assault rifle, which you can actually unlock in the main story, not having to beat the game first, like in the last one. And then with the crossbow, they did remove flashbang, which honestly, flashbang wasn't really that impressive. It was actually kind of inconvenient, especially towards half of the game. It just stopped being useful because enemies were just blind or just, it never really affected them. And they replaced it with the smoke bolt, which it's just a flashbang, except it's with smoke now. I don't really get the point of this change. It does seem a little bit unnecessary, if you would. Now, the game is actually structured like a open world sandbox type of thing, where you're in this big open area and you actually explore it, whether you're finding new enemies, find craft material, new weapons, new side quests, which there are side quests in the game, but they're not really as impressive as you would think. They're pretty short and sweet, nothing too special, which is why I'm not really going to be talking about them. Now, yes, there is level by level progression in the game still, but that's only in certain chapters. For the most part, you do have like 3 to 4 areas that are just this big sandbox area that you can just explore. With the new sequel, there are also new enemies, one of which is a combination of multiple enemies into one that form this 8 feet tall creature that uses gas to attack you. With these enemies are pretty much just a cat dog type of being, where they're similar to the dogs in Resident Evil. They're small but very fast and honestly pretty tricky to actually hit with a bullet. The fire ones, which can flame on whenever they want, nothing really too special. Then you have the really fat ones that can explode upon death if you don't kill them the right way. For the most part, you're just fighting the regular enemies. This Summer Witch don't actually hold any guns, which does decrease the amount of difficulty, but makes up for it for the amount of damage they can actually hit you with each melee attack. But it is a little bit of a shame because they're not throwing you multiple enemies at once, compared to the first game where you're in a big open area, or even a small area where it just throws you 5 different type of enemies, and you have to fight them according to which way is the best way for each one. You're not really going to be seeing that here in the sequel, unfortunately, but don't worry, it is still enjoyable, just a little bit saddening in that aspect. Next up is the actual boss fights, which are downgrade. They really are. Just not going to even sugarcoat it. They're just you pumping the boss full of bullets, and that's basically it. Now, in the first game, there were 1 or 2 enemies like that, but at the very least, you had them either invisible or just this hulking mass that actually took a good amount of bullets, while also charging at you having a Jarzer attacks, being somewhat complex rather than just you running away, shooting them, running away, shooting them. Like the Keeper, for example, he had a very good unique puzzle / mage, along with the Spider Lady. Unfortunately, you're not going to be seeing any of that in the sequel. It's just very straightforward, which isn't bad. It's just not as unique or interesting as the first game. So if you're into that, prepare for a little bit of disappointment. They still are fun and fighting, but just not as creative or memorable as the first one. Now, it seems like I've just skipped past a good amount of shit. I really didn't. This game has stuff going on but also doesn't at the same time, along with just me repeating what I've already said beforehand, which I don't really want to do compared to how the first game was. This game is not bad. I know it seems like I'm just talking so much shit about it. It is a sequel. It just doesn't exactly expand on the idea of what the first one was and what made the first one so great in the first place. It is an enjoyable ride. I do recommend it, although you don't have to play it, since if you like the first one, you don't really have to play the second one. The second one's very standalone. They don't reference anything from the first game other than saying Ruvik by name one time, and also the whole Joseph thing. But even then, you probably won't even know about Joseph unless you actually collected all the memory cards like I did. And it is a little bit shocking seeing how in my first playthrough I absolutely loved everything about this game. But now playing the second one, I'm just a lot more critical of it, especially since I just came off of playing the first one. And I can really just see what the difference between the two are. And it just makes it that much more straightforward to me. That ultimately, the first game is honestly just remarkable. It's better. The sequel does have good idea. It just doesn't follow up on them like the first one did. And that's ultimately its downfall. It's just not exactly as well put together as the first one. So I didn't actually put this in here in the first place. I'm actually post recording this, you could say. I just wanted to mention that the new STEM system they actually use for the game is honestly phenomenal. It reminds me a lot of the remake of Resident Evil 2 and 3 on just how polished it looks and how amazing it just absolutely is. And that there are a few bugs with pop in here and there. Nothing too drastically off putting. Although there is one thing that I encountered, and that was I had a trophy that was absolutely fucked up. That being the crossbow trophy, where you can see I picked it up and everything, and this is my second time doing this. And the game was just like, nope, you don't get the trophy, and I don't really know how to fix that. So if you're into that type of stuff, I'm playing this on the PS4 version. So, do with what you will with that information. You might be able to actually get the trophy, unlike me. Just letting you guys know that. One major factor I also forgot to mention just at all was the horror aspect. And that's kind of funny since this is, a horror game. But it does, I wouldn't say a better or worse job than the first one. I would say just about the same. Except you feel more tense throughout the whole game rather than actually being scared. There are a few times where I actually literally felt scared. That being the chase scenes where they do an amazing job on how they actually have it programmed, where you can hear them but you can't see them, and it just leaves this impression of like what it could be, what you think it is, and compared to what it actually might be. Sometimes that being more frightening than what it actually does look like, and you can never have a easygoing moment because, like I said, you are tense throughout the whole game because there are enemies popping up every single spot you can think of, whether that's them dropping from the ground, coming up from the ground, coming out of the cars, what have you. It's just not the same as being scared, but at the very least, it is something. And with that, have a good morning, good night, wherever you're at. If it's your birthday, happy birthday, and have a peaceful day. Until next time,